All right, welcome back to the channel. Danny Garcia thinks that him looking kind of scrubbish, at least that's what some people think, I don't agree with it, against Ivan Redcash will actually bait Manny Pacquiao or Errol Spence Jr. into a fight with him. I want to talk about that, but there's one person I know for sure, two people that I know for sure that won't work with. However, Danny Garcia is more than likely right about one of them. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channels. If you're not subscribed, I hope you accept my invitation to subscribe. But if you are subscribed, man, thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you for everybody that supports the 3 tiers to this channel, the live streams that we do on this channel, the video that we do on this channel, and the Patreon that we do over on Patreon. We got another really good video coming up. This one is going to be the wisdom of the boondocks. And I'm going to relate it to boxing. But over on the Patreon, keep your eye open for that. Now, before we get into it, though, just want to say special thank you to everybody that has also joined the channel as a member. Now, Danny Garcia fought Ivan Redcash last Saturday night. It was a non-title bout. Danny Garcia, though, is somebody that was a former unified 140-pound champion. He was a former WBC welterweight champion. So he's one of the more well-established welterweights. And right now he is in the phase of his career where he's a big name, but he's still good enough and still has enough of a reputation to try to get a shot at another championship in the welterweight division. The two people that he is looking to fight are Errol Spence Jr., who was the WBC and the IBF champion, and Manny Pacquiao, who was the WBA champion. Now, we know that Terrence Crawford is a WBO champion, but Danny Garcia said he'd be willing to fight him if the situation is right, which means he's gonna have to make that situation right. Gonna have to make the green real long to get Danny Garcia to fight Terrence Crawford over at Top Rank. But you know the money is already really big for Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence Jr. because more than likely both of those fights are pay-per-view fights. Danny Garcia has big enough a reputation in order for him to get a significant chunk of the pay-per-view money. So, you know, he wants to go that way, make his money, have a big name fight, have an opportunity to redeem himself from his loss to Danny Garcia, to Sean Porter and to Keith Thurman by upsetting one of those two. Now, the fight against Ivan Redcash was not the most electric performance ever, and it was against a guy that, if you looked on paper, you'd say, okay, Danny Garcia should be able to get this guy out of there. He's somebody that was knocked out. I can't remember who knocked him out, but I know he lost to Tevin Farmer either at 135 or at 130. I'm not sure if Tevin Farmer at some point in time had moved down from 135 to 130, but he lost to Tevin Farmer, and Tevin Farmer is the IBF? I think he's the IBF 130-pound champion. So, you know, and he's also lost to guys at definitely at 135. So this is 3 weight divisions up. You would think that he'd be able to do and stop Ivan Redcash, but he wasn't able to stop Ivan Redcash. I don't think it was a competitive fight. It's just that something where Ivan Redcash, because of the style that Danny Garcia has, that Ivan Redcash was able to stay away from him for long enough to be able to survive that fight. I think maybe also Ivan Redcash biting him on his shoulder and saying Tyson might have had something else to do with him. Like, man, I don't want to get next to this guy. This guy's kind of crazy. Let me just kind of coast this fight out. But what Danny Garcia said was that, hey, man, maybe that wasn't what the type of performance that he expected, but maybe that type of performance would actually get him in a position where he can fight, where Manny Pacquiao would be more anxious to fight him and Errol Spence Jr. would be more anxious to fight him. Now, what would that say? You know, that in and of itself sounds counterintuitive for boxing, right? Because you would think that the better you look, the more somebody else would want to fight you because they, you know, the saying and the channel, shout out to it, best fight the best. You know, the best wants to fight the best is looking for the best competition. But as we know, that is not always the case. There are several fighters in boxing, and it's happened for, you know, I'm sure for as long as boxing's been around. I was listening to Scrapbook Boxing talk about a welterweight champion that found a way to fight everybody but the top but the top fighters, right? And wound up getting beat by somebody that he was supposed to beat easily. Can't remember the name of the guy. It's kind of an archaic reference, but you get my point. Now, so if you had to figure out, and I'm going to share my opinion, between Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence, which one do you think that approach would work with? Now, on Errol Spence Jr.'s part, I don't believe Errol Spence Jr. wants to fight Danny Garcia. It was set that he fought Danny Garcia. In fact, it was supposed to fight, Danny Garcia is supposed to fight Errol Spence Jr. in this fight. That instead of Ivan Redcash, this fight was supposed to be a pay-per-view event, and it was supposed to be with Errol Spence Jr. and Danny Garcia, but Errol Spence Jr. had got in a car accident, and so he was injured. He had rehab, and he has to come back, and that pushed the date back. But Errol Spence Jr., I don't think really wanted to fight Danny Garcia. He wants to fight Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao is the one that seems kind of, you know, iffy about whether or not who he wants to fight. He keeps putting out polls and things like that about who he thinks he should fight, you know, talking about Conor McGregor, or at least implying Conor McGregor still has his eyes on a rematch against a retired Floyd Mayweather Jr. But so if I'm Danny Garcia and I'm thinking, hey man, I look kind of vulnerable, that might have improved my chances to get a fight with somebody, who would that be? I don't think it would be Errol Spence, because Errol Spence Jr. wants a Pacquiao fight. And that could be just a reason to say, hey man, this guy looked like garbage. Even though I don't think Danny Garcia looked like garbage. Hey, look man, I really want the Terrence Crawford, I really want the Manny Pacquiao fight. But Manny Pacquiao, I do believe that situation could work. Because that's what Manny Pacquiao has done for his last 3 fights. His last 3 fights consisted of Lucas Matisse, Adrian Broner, and Keith Thurman. Lucas Matisse has been over the hill. Okay, Lucas Matisse, the reputation of Lucas Matisse went out the window with that Danny Garcia fight. And I went back and looked at that Danny Garcia fight with Lucas Matisse. That was a better fight than I had originally remembered it being. It was a lot of back and forth, but man, Danny Garcia closed that man's eye up. So that's Lucas Matisse, who he stopped. I think he fought him in Malaysia. The next fight was Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner's best days have been way behind him. His vulnerability has been shown 100 times over, from Marcus Maidana to Mikey Garcia to Sean Porter to Adrian Granados. Adrian Broner is a great personality, but we've known for a while that he's not a top level welterweight, and doesn't stay disciplined enough into the sport to really to maximize his potential. So Adrian Broner fits into that category. The last fight that Manny Pacquiao had, Keith Thurman, also fits into that scenario, because this is exactly what happened with Keith Thurman, except for Keith Thurman was maybe a little worse, because Keith Thurman fought Josecito Lopez, and Josecito Lopez hurt that dude with that body shot that told Manny Pacquiao what he needed to do in the fight against Keith Thurman. But Keith Thurman was the bigger, brighter name, had a belt, the WBA belt, and Manny Pacquiao had a choice of choosing between Errol Spence Jr. and Keith Thurman, and he took the apparent path of least resistance, which was Keith Thurman. So it only is reasonable to say that this is something that Manny Pacquiao very well might be interested in doing. Danny Garcia is a big name in the welterweight division, right? Definitely is. He just had a subpar performance, and also he had lost to 2 other top welterweights in Keith Thurman, who Manny Pacquiao beat, and to Sean Porter. So it seems to me like that very well might be the case. Now, the only twist is that if Manny Pacquiao sees Errol Spence Jr.'s injury is a reason to get on him, then hey man, that might throw it off. But look, Manny Pacquiao, it might sound like I'm blasting on Manny Pacquiao. I'm really not trying to. Excuse me. I'm really not trying to. Because there's other fighters that do that, pick the low-hanging fruit as well. Canelo Alvarez has been picking low-hanging fruit for the last year. Pretty much since he signed that DAZN contract, it's been low-hanging fruit. Daniel Jacobs had already lost to somebody that Canelo Alvarez beat, so that fits the profile. Rocky Fielding, is Rocky Fielding. That's enough. Sergio, oh my God, I want to say Sergio. I was going to say Sergio Martinez. Sergey Kovalev had been knocked out 2 times, knocked out 2 times and beaten 3 times. Beaten by Andre Ward, knocked out by Andre Ward, knocked out by Alvarez, and then he had a fight against a guy in Anthony Yard from the UK who really didn't have a lot of experience and isn't that technically sound a fighter. He almost got knocked out by Anthony Yard. So it fit with Canelo as well. So, I mean, there are fighters that regularly do that stuff. They look for opportunities to where they can get a big name on their resume with as low a risk as possible so that they can sell the fight to the best extent that they can, but not set themselves up for a loss. That's some guys are matchmaking like that. And so Danny Garcia, I think he's got a point, and I think that might work with Manny Pacquiao. But you let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.